film sets us in the midst of 1965 at Jefferson High School in California, where literature teacher Simon is giving a class about Joan of Arc to his students. Among the students is Stanley, a tall, red-haired boy with enormous ears, so he wasn't exactly the most popular in the room. To foster cooperation, Simon announces that he himself will choose the pairs for the final project, pairing Stanley with Andy, a modest boy who doesn't like to draw attention. Although his new partner will complicate matters, Simon privately tells Andy that he has great potential as a writer and that someone as intelligent as Stanley can help him grow. After class, Andy sees Stanley being harassed by the Reiki gang, who shoot him with water pistols to humiliate him. That is Stanley's everyday reality, yet he continues to attend his classes with his head held high. Later, he goes to see Norman, Stanley's best friend who also suffers from bullying. Norman is asked to have patience with Stanley, being described as a unique talent. As a result, Andy is forced to sit in the awkward corner, a spot in the playground where the nerds gather, and he quickly becomes the object of ridicule among his peers. Despite this, Stanley admits that he does not want to work with Andy, so he offers to write the project on his own, even though Andy insists they work together. On his way home, Andy recounts his day to his mother, Cherry, asking why God would create someone as unattractive as Stanley so that everyone could mock him. In response, his mother suggests that perhaps God never saw anything wrong with him in the first place. The next day, while walking to school with his friend Dan, Andy sees the girl of his dreams, Mary, whom all his classmates have kissed except for him, and Mary is known as the prettiest girl in the school. In contrast, Karen Connor is quite the opposite, known as Dirty Connor because of her acne. That day, she bumps into Jason, who believes he has infected her with dirtiness. Immediately, Jason seeks help from the dirtiness expert, Marin, who assures him that the only way to cure her is to touch Karen again to reverse her curse. Unable to touch her with his bare hands, Jason starts hitting her with his jacket while reciting some sort of ritual to restore her dirtiness. The only being invoked is Stanley, who, in defense of his friend, shoves Jason threateningly against a wall, even though he refuses to hurt him. Norman and Andy reprimand him for rejecting violence, to which Stanley replies that he can't force bullies to become good people, while Karen breaks down in tears in the bathroom. There, Simon offers her comfort and asks who hurt her. Later, Simon returns to his students looking somewhat dejected, revealing that he had just won a car in a competition where participants had to propose a formula for world peace in 25 words. Simon won with just 4: human dignity plus compassion plus peace. In his administrative work at the school office, Andy learns that Stanley will participate in the upcoming talent show as a singer. Andy and Norman immediately question him about it. Stanley replies that he has always loved singing and now is the time to show his passion. Norman explodes with fury, insisting that Stanley's performance will only worsen things for the nerds. Soon after, Andy is intercepted by Mary's best friend, who is supposedly in love with him, perhaps because she has already been with most of the boys. The next day, Andy starts earning money from his neighbors at his job as a newspaper delivery boy. When he arrives at Mary's house, he is not greeted by her father as usual, but by Mary herself, confirming the rumors that she is interested in him. After buying a cookie with his earnings, Andy sets off for home only to have Ricky throw a wet newspaper at him, knocking him off his bike and snatching back his snack. Back at Jefferson High, one of the bullies tells Andy that there are rumors claiming that his favorite teacher, Simon, is a homosexual. Not fully understanding the term, Andy states that he has no problem sharing his space with homosexuals. Jason, who had just finished serving punishment for the incident with Karen, also hears these rumors and wonders if a teacher can be fired for being homosexual. Later at home, Andy asks his mother the meaning of the term, and she has no choice but to explain the truth to him. Even though her husband Jim is completely opposed and feels indignant that a homosexual should be teaching the younger generation, Jason relays the same concern to his own mother, who promptly tells her husband, Ed. Although everyone knows him as the wrestler Randy Orton, Ed meets with Evelyn, the principal of Jefferson High, to request Simon's dismissal. Upon hearing this, Evelyn reveals that Simon is a judoka and has been winning the award for best teacher in the region for years, though she points out that he has never remarried, which might be seen as a sign of his homosexuality. She then gives Ed 48 hours to do something about it before alerting the other parents immediately. The principal reports the situation to Simon, urgently asking him to deny the rumors so that everything can return to normal. However, Simon refuses, not understanding why his private life should interfere with his professional one, a response that frustrates Evelyn. Back with Andy, we see him trying to win Mary over, but Dan reveals that those rumors spread quickly throughout the school, eventually reaching Mary's ex, Ricky. The worst part is that Andy thought Mary had decided to break up with him, but in reality, the situation was quite the opposite. That night, Evelyn visits Andy to ask him not to expose someone as wonderful as Simon, admonishing him for what his son did to Karen. A bit annoyed, Ed makes it clear that he punished his son for that mistake by claiming that he was merely an immature boy, while Simon remains a much larger issue. On the next school day, Andy discovers that teacher Simon has put his new car up for sale and confesses that this will be his last year teaching at the school because he plans to move to another county to be with a sister he hasn't seen in a long time. Andy hasn't even processed the fact that his favorite teacher is leaving when Ricky hits him for trying to win Mary's affections. Fortunately, Andy appears just in time to intimidate Ricky, promising that he won't be sold out to any teacher. Minutes later, we see Andy searching his locker when Mary begins the rollover ritual, a process in which the girl gradually approaches her target to encourage him to speak. The ritual works perfectly, and the nervous Andy finds himself with no other option but to speak. To his surprise, he musters the courage to give her a bracelet and invite her on a date later. During class, he keeps replaying famous kissing scenes from old movies as practice. Returning to reality, Andy and Stanley submit their final project, the results of which remain unknown. In physical education, the protagonist makes every effort to move as little as possible so as not to sweat and become drenched in body odor. After school, he heads straight to his date with Mary like a robot, even though Dan reminds him that Ricky would kill him for it. Speaking of that bully, Ricky appears right in front of him to hassle him, though Merrick exclaims that he'll tell the principal that Ricky stole money from a vending machine. That saves Andy for now, but Ricky assures him that next time there will be no one to help. Unfortunately for the protagonist, it's too late for his date, so Mary asks him to postpone it until after the talent show. At that moment, Stanley starts feeling nervous before singing, and Andy calls him the bravest guy he knows, giving him a bit of motivation, even though Andy keeps asking if his best friend attended the recital. Not seeing Norman anywhere, Andy immediately heads to his house to convince him to go see Stanley perform. Norman responds that he doesn't understand why Stanley is so proud and insists on not watching bullies mock him if he sings badly. Nonetheless, Norman ends up going to wish his best friend luck, still puzzled by Stanley's determination. Stanley firmly replies that he is a singer. After several disappointing performances, the audience begins to tire and covers their ears until a boy drummer, someone no one expected much from, surprises them all. This adds extra pressure on the final participant, Stanley, who prepares to sing Dare to Dream, a song he wrote himself. Despite his poor reputation, Stanley stands on stage with pride like a true artist. Before the song starts, Andy grabs a tomato and throws it at Ricky, ready to hit him. However, Ricky immediately threatens Andy, saying he lacks the guts. Ricky laughs after receiving that tremendous blow and screams in pain, hoping that Andy will be punished. Simon, though, claims that Ricky was only suffering from stomach discomfort after eating too many tomatoes. When the bully is finally removed from the auditorium, the teacher congratulates Andy for giving him what he deserved, and at last Stanley begins singing completely a cappella. Although his voice isn't the most melodious, he dares to show his talent with pride and determination, earning everyone's admiration. Now there is just one loose end, the date between Mary and Andy. Andy rushes to kiss her, but at the very last second, he regrets it and kisses her on the cheek instead. Because of that, Mary deduces that he has never actually kissed a girl. Rather than judging him, she decides to teach him how to kiss properly. After a tender first kiss, Mary reveals that her record for a kiss is 1 minute and 16 seconds with Ricky, prompting Andy to immediately set out to beat that record. Finally, the last day of classes arrives. Simon says goodbye to his students, not without first handing back their final essays, emphasizing that they were all excellent, and confessing that Andy and Stanley have been the best students he ever taught, wishing them a future full of success. The boys then ask him about their future, and Simon assures them that he will continue teaching because he will never stop being a teacher. As Simon leaves Jefferson High for the last time, he discovers a poster on his old car written by his students, calling him the best teacher in the world and presenting him with a bouquet of flowers. Thanks to that beautiful gesture, Simon can leave with his heart at ease, knowing he made a positive impact on those kids. Despite the rumors about his private life, Andy still decides to visit him to clarify one doubt. Why did he pair him with Stanley for the final project? Simon explains that he saw an unmissable opportunity to explore his talent and wasn't sure if he was up to the challenge. But sometimes all you need is someone to tell you that you can do it to overcome your limits. Having understood that lesson, Andy returns home to mow the lawn as usual. Within seconds, his father appears to scold him for doing it poorly and not finishing the job, although this time Andy asks to finish it his own way. His father insists, however, that for the first time, he managed to do something without help. In the epilogue, we learn that Andy became a successful writer and family man, while Stanley decided to dedicate his life to helping underprivileged children and was incredibly lucky to win $41 million in the lottery. After that, he married Karen, and they had 3 red-haired children, among other characters. Mary went on to become a sex education teacher and has been married 4 times, while Ricky ended up in prison after leading a gang of wild bikers. I suppose some things never change.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.